Well, inside the coalition, more and more of their own politicians are calling on the Morrison government not to appeal the recent landmark court decision that found in favour of live cattle exporters. Earlier this month, you'll recall that the federal court ruled in favour of a class action seeking $600 million for lost income as a result of the snap live cattle ban. This is the ban between Australia and Indonesia, put in place by the Gillard government back in 2011. And while the government has been very sympathetic regarding the losses experienced by those involved, it continues to say it's looking at appealing the decision and therefore avoiding compensation costs. Joining me now is Nationals MP for New England, Barnaby Joyce from Canberra. Barnaby, you and I were around right in the middle of this all those years ago. I can't believe you would now, or your party, be on the wrong side of history here.
Well, I think it's really important that we understand the history, and first and foremost was that Joe Ludwig, the Labor Party minister, overnight after a Four Corners report, basically shut down the Northern Australia's major industry, which is live cattle, and got our closest neighbour, which we're terribly reliant on, and did the worst piece of diplomatic relations for this area that we've done in decades. So it was all round catastrophic for the industry and catastrophic for our diplomatic relations. I'm sure that we're sort of climbing out of that at the moment. Now, the other issue, of course, that the court has now found that he acted with reckless disregard, and therefore we are liable. The government is liable, regardless of whether it's Labor or coalition. It's got to pay up. Now, we should have settled this, Peter, prior to a decision by the court. And then we wouldn't have the complications we have now, where the decision by the judge has implications in other areas. And I believe that Christian Porter is probably, he's incredibly capable, and he's now discussing the implications of this. But
look, Barney, but just let me jump in there. You're right to say the coalition had 6 years to settle the decision. They didn't for whatever reason. And I understand the point of law that Christian Porter wants to appeal on, not the sort of principle of the claim of the exporters, but the point of law is worried that will set a precedent. But why don't you then go ahead, appeal the point of law, but guarantee some sort of ex gratia payment, if you must, to these exporters? You know and I know that they did suffer this harm, that they were badly done by the Gillard government. So why not ensure that they don't have to go through another court action, that they go ahead if they want and appeal a point of law, but look after them because they've earned their way through the court system for 10 years to get a $600 million payout. They deserve it.
I think that's the way out of this, Peter, to be quite frank. I think that prior to appeal, you should do the settlement and just say, OK, we're going to actually now pay these people out. Now, the issue, if you want to go to court, it's on something else. I can understand the position of the cattle growers, because I'm one myself, not a live cattle grower, but I'm a cattle producer, that it's they'll say, well, how do we get good faith when you never actually settled to us before this problem you've now got? I mean,
well, I won't charge you for that free legal advice, Barnaby. I won't charge you for that free legal advice about an ex gratia payment, but I reckon as soon as you get the microphone out of your ear off this program, go and talk to Christian Porter, set up a scheme, an ex gratia scheme, get them paid, and then, fight the point of law through the courts. But they deserve, after 10 years, to get what's owed to them. I've got to move on now. I want to ask you a question. You, obviously, before New England, were in the Queensland LNP. You were a senator for Queensland. Do you think it's appropriate that the president of the LNP, right in the middle of an election campaign now, fighting Clive Palmer's party and Labor and Pauline Hanson and everyone come October, that the president of the LNP is employed by the political rival in Clive Palmer?
No, it's not. And, that's a pretty straight answer. No, it's not. It creates massive confusions. And, Hutcho's a good fellow, but this is too confusing. And what we have now is this whole imbroglio of people trying to affect the person in the public, the leader of the opposition, who we hope will be the future premier. Remembering, of course, that if the person's actually in public office and you try to do that, it's a criminal offence. At a federal level, I think it's a breach of 139-1 of the Commonwealth Crimes Act, punishable by up to 15 years in jail. So it's something that it's very, very serious. You can't sort of wander around to elected people and start asking them to step down. That's a job for the party. And if they actually do get elected, it's actually a crime.
So are you saying that they're trying to bully her this side of an election because it would be illegal to do so if she was the Premier?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I think that they're trying to change horses because I think they've got a better chance of winning. But that's a job for the party.
That the person who might replace Deb Frecklington, they would hope would be more amenable to their arguments.
Yeah, it just never works. People, because the people who understand politicians best are the other politicians, and they've got other credentials that you don't see in the public realm that you do see in the room when you're working with them. If elections were a beauty pageant, then John Howard would never have been one of the longest and best-serving prime ministers of Australia. I mean, it does. You've got to see their credentials up close, and politicians in the room with them see that more so than executives of the party outside. As important as the executive of the party is, it shouldn't embroil itself with the vote of the party room.
Just before we go, I've got to ask you, Anthony Byrne, the Labor MP that now people are casting a cloud over because of his likely role, we don't know, him or his office in this tape fiasco and branch stacking stuff down in Victoria. Is he a good guy or a bad guy here in exposing the branch stacking?
Well, I think he's a good guy. I think, look, the Labor Party is about to implode. This is ridiculous. And for them to say that they didn't know that there was branch stacking, that is completely and utterly unbelievable. It's, of course they knew about it. And now ultimately the truth comes out, and you'll go all the way to the top that they all knew who was what. In this boarding school, rumours and stories like that don't stay shut up. Everybody's got their own story, and now they're pretending they haven't heard it. Well, it is real. It's not the ambit scratchings on the back of a lavatory door. This is real. This really happened, and I think that Mr. Byrne is. To be honest, I think he's done a good thing if he's been part of lancing this boil and dealing with this for the sake of his party. And the Labor Party is a great party for the sake of their party. Then more power to his army. The fault does not reside with him. The fault resides with the rat bags and the people paying money and stacking branches and completely confounding our democratic process. That's where the fault lies. That's who you got to chase.